welcome you to the the City of Homestead Committee of the Home, Finance, Enterprise Park and Recs, Public Safety Utilities Committee meeting. Again, for the record, it's Tuesday, May 8, 2012. It is now 5:50 in the evening, and we're at 790 North Homestead Boulevard, Homestead, Florida. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Fairclough McCormick, absent. Councilman Maldonado.
Here.
Councilman Shelley.
Here.
Councilwoman Warman.
Here.
Councilman Williams, absent. Vice Mayor Burgess.
Here.
Mayor Bateman.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Additions, deletions, deferrals. We have one addition, Bird Bowl proposal for due diligence period. Motion to move it on?
Move it.
Second? Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Okay, item carries. Okay, we will now go ahead and discuss that Bird Bowl proposal. Staff report on the Bird Bowl. Thank you.
Mayor, approval of the due diligence agreement is recommended as Bird Bowl would provide insurance and indemnification to the city for all access and inspections to the bowling center. As Bird Bowl would be expending significant time and monies to inspect the bowling center, the agreement not to market by the city appears reasonable during such time as city and Bird Bowl are negotiating and working towards a purchasing and sale agreement. It's just carrying out the council's direction from the last meeting, and this would give them the 60 days to do their due diligence.
It also does contain full insurance and indemnification, so anybody that goes on that property to do inspections will have to sign an agreement with indemnification agreement, so that if they fall, it's not the responsibility of the city.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Comments from the council? Now's the time to introduce. Anything, Steve? Okay. All right, that's not a voting item. Is Bob Levy here? Bob Levy. Let's see. Okay. The next item on the agenda is discussion. Was Bob Levy? We'll move past that and we'll come back to that. Discussion of items of Centennial Steering Committee update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The chair of the Centennial Steering Committee is here for an update and to get direction from you in some items.
Welcome, Chairwoman.
Good afternoon. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Yvonne Knowles. I chair the Centennial Steering Committee, pardon me. It's my brand new job, so I'm getting used to the title.
Now listen, I'd like to congratulate you. I'm sure the whole council will. Thank you very much for taking that position and being nominated in that position.
I have to say my vice chairman, Mr. Tim Craig, is in the audience, and I wouldn't have done it without his saying, I'll be the vice chair. So thank you, Tim, for taking that on with me.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
The items I'd like to present to you today are, first off, thank you for the opportunity to present an update on the Homestead Centennial Steering Committee. The committee is meeting weekly at 43 North Chrome Avenue, Mondays at 9 a.m. The following topics have been discussed and are presented to you this afternoon for direction. Our first item is branding. While many aspects of the Adkins and Associates marketing package can and will be used as far as image development and event branding, such as the bumper strip, the T-shirts, the banner, lapel pin ideas, as well as engaging organizations, corporations, and individuals and engaging city staff, the steering committee strongly felt that the actual image that was chosen in 2008 does not successfully relate to Homestead or our historical connection to South Florida. Therefore, we are requesting funds to redesign the logo only. The steering committee is respectfully requesting approval for $2,000 to create an official Centennial logo using a professional design company. And we got this range of fee from our liaison, Begonia Gonzalez, who said that she felt this would be about right in her research and going out there and talking to various professional companies. So we're only talking in this whole package the fee for designing the logo. Everything else in that package we would continue with. The event scope is our next subject. We envision the centennial as a celebration broken down into 3 major public events with filler events each month to keep the theme alive. These filler events would include videotaping citizens and creating oral written history events on a more intimate scale. July 4th would be the presentation of the Centennial branding package. Logo, bumper strips, visors, pins, and T-shirts would be available at the Homestead July 4th celebration at Homestead Speedway. A public information booth would be set up at that event. On August 24th, our second event, we would have the Homestead Centennial actual kickoff event at the we're thinking at this point, the Homestead Community Center at 1601 North Chrome Avenue. Here we will be highlighting the history of Homestead, the resurrection after Hurricane Andrew, and the political, civic, and community leaders who brought Homestead back from the devastation of Andrew. So this would be an indoor event. The final big centennial celebration we envision would be in January. Again, a date to be determined. We're still wrestling with all the other conflicting events that are occurring on the weekends from January 19th to February 9th. We haven't figured a date yet on this, but we hope to have that at our next meeting resolved. At this point, those are our 3 big events that we have planned, and we're hoping that you will give us direction on your approvals of that. The Centennial subcommittees have been formed. As we go forward, the other remaining members of the steering committee will be added to these committees, but at this time, the following subcommittee chairs have been selected. Our promotion committee chair is Kamitra Driver. Our finance committee chair is Mr. Steve Losner. Our sponsorship committee is Mr. Losner and myself. The community outreach is Mr. Tim Craig and Mrs. Kamitra Driver. Our 3 major event planning events will be myself and the steering committee working focusing on the 3 big events I just described. And then the events coordination committee is Mr. Tim Craig, and this is the committee that will be working to connect all of our centennial events with the events that are already on the docket for Homestead. The upcoming events such as the rodeo, the Pineapple Ball, there's a myriad number of events that are already planned through November. Homestead Air Reserve Base Air Show that's occurring in November. I've got a whole list in my brain, but right now, every month we have about 3 events occurring, and we want to make sure there's a presence of the Centennial at each one of those events. Mr. Craig will be running that committee. And then we feel that as an advisory committee to the City Council, that we should tie into the state of Florida's 500-year celebration. And we would like to draft a letter for Council to sign that would ask our state representatives to coordinate activities planned for the 500-year celebration with Homestead's 100-year celebration. Also, a letter would be drafted by the committee for council approval and signature that will request involvement from our county, state, and federal representatives in celebrating the Homestead Centennial. So this is the outcome of our first meeting, but I hope that gets us on the track, and if we have diverted or diverged anywhere, please let us know. We look to you for guidance on these items, and that's it for right now.
Well, thank you. Questions from council?
Question, Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Walman.
Through the mayor, I'd like to ask the attorney. The Homestead is home. The slogan slash motto that we adopted many years ago. We did receive, I don't know if you can use that, Yvonne, the Homestead is home.
But yeah, that's a slogan, but what we're looking for is the actual imagery, the iconic image that would be the image for the 100-year. That's what we're asking funding for.
Well, I meant just throughout the process, I just wanted you to know that that is available, maybe in some of your literature, your banners or whatever, just so you know, because that was something that we let go there for many years, and I noticed There's still a blog out there
We
with the
actually
name.
we did protect it legally. It belongs to the city. So it does, that is something that's available for the city to use.
Okay, so I just wanted you to know that.
Yes, thank you very much. We understand that is the city slogan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Shelley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, I guess, procedurally. The issue of designing the logo and how do we choose the company who's going to design the logo and then what the actual ultimate logo will look like? Procedurally, how do we do that through the committee? Because I know the council would probably want to have some sort of say in that design. And then does the committee have the authority to go out and choose a company, or are they going to have to come back to us? How's that going to work?
No, we would hire the company.
Okay. And procedurally, then they would bring a list of names to staff or to us, the council?
Well, I understood it was going to be as the same process as everything else for the city through procurement, the same way we choose any other vendor.
Okay.
As far as choosing the actual logo, most likely what we could do is, once we pick a company based on their quotes and their qualifications, they can probably put together different ideas, and then the steering committee can share it with you.
And they'll make recommendations, but ultimately the final decision will be yours.
And I guess my question is twofold. One, making sure there's a checks and balances and safeguard, but two, if they're talking about the first branding being in July, you're talking about a very quick time frame to get it out there, get it designed, get it approved, get everything printed, marketed, and then ready to be presented on July 4th. So I guess I want to make sure that we do it right, but I also want to make sure we can get it done in time to make the planned event.
Councilman Shelley, we were hoping we would have the design done by the end of May and give a month for production.
So your question really is, can we do it in 30 days through procurement?
That's correct. Yeah.
Good luck.
That's where we need your direction. How soon can we get this procurement going, and how soon can we get somebody chosen that can design the logo for us?
It doesn't require a formal vote. We just wanted to make sure, because we don't think the logo cost will be anywhere near more than $2,000, right? So we just wanted to make sure before we went in that direction that you were comfortable, and then we'll go forward with that.
But I think the question still is up in the air. Is, can you do it in 30 days?
We'll have to find out from the companies whether we can get them done or not.
No. Can you select the company in 30 days through procurement? I just want to hear.
Absolutely.
Okay. They can do it. Thank you so much. Okay, item B, tab 2, a letter of support from the University Center of Economic Development Program for St. Thomas University.
Move it, Mayor.
Thank you. Second. Discussion from council. Is there a staff report on this? I don't know.
They're here. St. Thomas is here. They'd like to do a brief presentation, if you don't mind.
Where's yours? You want me to?
Thank you.
Mayor Bateman and members of the City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on behalf of the School of Business at St. Thomas University. As the Director of Marketing and Recruitment for the school, this is a real honor for me, so thank you. Today I would like to discuss our proposal for the Economic Development Agency's 2012 University Center with a request for your consideration. The University Center will seek to create sustainable minority-owned businesses in the South Miami-Dade region with a focus on the city of Homestead. The impacts of this effort include financial resources available for these entrepreneurs in the form of microfunding, job creation, and a motivation for sustained advancement. We have received support for the center from a number of areas. Mr. Rene Infante, founder of Bargain Town and Redland Market Village, has pledged $40,000 in financial support over the 5-year project if funded. He's also committed 2,000 square feet of facility space to support the small businesses. The South Florida Regional Planning Council has expressed support for St. Thomas University and the School of Business in this initiative. The council is comprised of more than 200 organizations of various public, private, nonprofit, and civic organizations, and is committed to the economic development of the Southeast Florida region. Maria Garza of the South State Skills Center has been an active supporter of this initiative from the inception. In addition, St. Thomas University has committed in-kind support in the form of personnel, indirect funding, and duplication services. St. Thomas University and the School of Business is seeking a letter of support from the City of Homestead, as well as an $8,000 donation in-kind services in the areas of training and staff support each year over the 5-year project period. St. Thomas and the School of Business is committed to the South Miami-Dade region and the City of Homestead. This initiative will be a significant step forward for us in support of minority entrepreneurs that can create employment. To end, St. Thomas University and the School of Business would very much appreciate a letter of support for this project. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Council. Yes,
Mr. Mayor, just clarification. I see they asked for $8,000 in kind, and in our staff report, it looks like it says the city will donate $40,000 of in kind. Which one is it?
5 years.
So it's
Spread out over a period.
okay. So it's $8,000 per year for the 5 years. Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Question, if I may.
Vice Mayor.
So I guess their proposal is that, like, if we have a staff person, say somebody from the clerk that's available to go up there, do some clerical work, or is that exactly what they're looking for?
No, the proposal is more for in-kind services. So those things that they had mentioned were like to help them support training or help them support program activities, help them write grants or help them locate. So it would be a little bit of staff resources, but wouldn't be, I don't anticipate as like a full-time staff member over there. Again, it's only $8,000 a year, so it would be targeted kind of little projects during the course of the year.
I guess they would come with us and say, I need help on this particular project, and we would find somebody that could help them.
Correct. I would assume they would make a proposal.
Figure it out on a per-hour basis?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, my name is John Carpenter. I'm the Dean of Academic Resources at St. Thomas University. And as our director has said, St. Thomas very much wants to be committed to the City of Homestead in South Florida. We're committed to encouraging micro-enterprises. So we're hoping with federal support and with support of the university that 8 to 10 persons selected, these are poor people, would be encouraging to establish micro-enterprises. And hopefully this is the beginning of a process, beginning of a strong commitment by St. Thomas University to Homestead here in South Dade. If there are any questions, we'd be very pleased to answer them. And if I may say, we're both very grateful for the opportunity to present this and hopeful for the opportunity to really work in support of Homestead.
Thank you very much. My question really is to the city manager, and it's twofold, is how does this affect our own incubator, the Carrie Meek Center, where I don't know what type of federal dollars are over there, but they're pretty significant. By reaching out outside the city limits of Homestead and separately from our own current incubator we have that we fund through different grants on a yearly basis. And two, where does the $40,000, where do you see the $40,000, the $8,000 a year coming from?
First of all, I'm not aware that this would impact the incubator at all. This is really to work with small businesses, try to get them created and lend them money. And so I think it's a little different than some of what the incubator does. What we also asked is, they're going to do this program someplace. They've been working with our economic development director to try to bring it here to Homestead so that we can afford certain people who are qualified an opportunity within Homestead to get these loans. And so from our perspective, it made a lot of sense to get them here in Homestead. And then also the staff, hopefully, we don't see this as a dollar amount as much as it is a requirement on their application to put some dollar value to demonstrate economic partnership. But the reality is whoever they're going to be dealing with is going to need governmental help anyway, whether it's getting through the process and or any other kind of assistance that we can provide. But it's not technically a budget item where we're going to need money from the council. It's all utilizing existing staff.
Okay. And if I may offer the commitment of St. Thomas that we have a very strong school of the business, and there's a number of research facilities that we have, so we would provide the support of St. Thomas in seeking to have a very strong base for this. And we're designing a cohort model by which the individuals chosen to be developed as micro-enterprise successes. We're hoping to have, and we'd be very willing to cooperate with whatever agencies you feel we could be supportive of and cooperate here.
And ironically enough, the more involvement the staff gets, I think the better chance we have of having applicants come into their operation, because we do want to cast a wide net and try to bring qualified people to their program and hopefully get them loans. It's such a difficult thing these days to get loans for a startup company, and so we really appreciate what they're doing.
I do want to mention the funding that we'd be providing these enterprises it's not loans, it's actual funding. So there is no anticipation that they will pay back.
A repayment, yeah. No, I think it's a win-win. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't stepping on something similar that we have. Similar but really different, as the manager said, it really is. And I just want to be sure that we weren't doing something.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, actually, to follow up on what you said, that you did raise a good point regarding the incubator. It didn't occur to me until you raised it. So I support it. I think this is great. And if we can have more than one entity that can perform the function or that can help each other, I think that's a fantastic thing. But I would like to maybe have you look into it before the council meeting just to make sure there is no conflict and that these two programs can operate successfully together or at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir. At this time, I'd like to back up on the agenda and ask Bob Levy and Associates to come up and present, just a quick overview of this last year in Tallahassee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Bob.
Is this on?
Yes, sir.
Robert M. Levy, 780 Northeast 69th Street, Miami, Florida. Mr. Mayor, Council, it's wet out there.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Let me, I know obviously you have a long agenda and a lot of people here, so I'll be quick. First of all, I want to thank the mayor for his many trips up to Tallahassee, working on both the Chrome.
You got to speak right into that mic because the AC is so loud.
Gotcha. The Chrome bypass and the attempts to secure a turnpike interchange. And
thank you.
I think we made some headway, but it's a long way to go.
Oh yeah. Squeaky wheel gets you all though, Bob.
It does. It does. We tried unsuccessfully to, I'm sure you all follow what was going on with the parking garage in the Marlins Stadium, and we tried with John Burgess on several occasions to convince the legislature to approach the Miami parking garage in the same manner that we would like to approach the Homestead Grand Prix Motorsports Complex and try to get us out from under the ad valorem burden. They did it in statute. Personally, I believe that it will be overturned in court eventually. We tried to convince them of that. We know that it's unconstitutional, or we wouldn't be paying that tax today. Um, We had our annual municipal utility and water bill where they tried to stop us from the ability to sell excess utility services outside of our borders. That seems to be coming from our friends in the northern end of the county. We were successful in defeating that. Probably the most time that was spent by everyone, I'd like to thank the manager for holding his ground, was on the CRA bill. Specific, deliberate attempt to shut down the CRA, and Homestead was one of the CRAs that was targeted specifically by officials with our colleagues in the county. And I'm pleased to tell you that we were successful in that effort in defeating it. I would tell you that Homestead and Florida City were at the lead on that issue, and if not for the coalition put together under the direction of the manager, we might not have a CRA today. So very proud and happy of that victory.
Thank you. And for the viewing audience, the men and women here today, that's about $2.8 million a year that we would have lost. It comes back to us now.
We continue under the leadership of Councilwoman Waldman and Stephen Shelley as well to be engaged on the Rails and Trails issue. We're determined to continue to complete that 18-mile stretch and link the parks. We are the last link. We did get very involved, thanks to Councilwoman Waldman, in trying to secure some federal support for that. I'm happy to tell you that the Rails and Trails sponsorship bill passed, which may provide further dollars. There are a lot of people with mixed emotions about that issue, commercializing the Rails and Trails and putting commercial advertising in places where people to come to be in pristine environments, and it's very controversial, but the jury's out, as they say. We did three major issues this year. Number one was gambling, number two was gambling, and number three was gambling. Gambling was the 500-pound gorilla in the china closet, and it consumed probably 75% of the session. As you're all aware, things are status quo. In fact, the legislature was unable to even reach a point where they regulated internet cafes, which are proliferating throughout the state, as well as ALFs. So both internet cafes and ALFs are still unregulated by the state through inactivity on the part of the legislature. We did finish the redistricting portion of the process. We're going to have some new legislators representing this community. We're still not sure until qualifying who those will be, but and of course the election, so I'd urge you to follow that very carefully. Mr. Mayor, there are about 50 other issues, but in the interest of time, I'll take questions if the council has any. I'll tell you one issue that we passed that I'm very pleased that we were very specifically involved in. We found a little glitch in the law. Up until July 1, all code enforcement, lien notices, and any notices that the city send of delinquencies had to be sent with a return receipt. We eliminated that language as antiquated technology, and it's going to save the cities and counties across the state a lot of money. No return receipt is any longer needed. We also were able to defeat, and I have to say it's the finest hour I've seen for the Florida League of Cities. We were able to defeat the business tax repeal, which would have stopped your ability to levy a business tax in your own municipality. So those are really the major issues in a year that was totally consumed by gambling, budget, $4 billion deficit. The water management district, as you know, Mr. Manager, was decimated. They continue to decimate it. They are probably going to be set back 10 years in partnership with local government. There's going to be a countywide municipal meeting with the Water Management District, which you're going to be getting notice on shortly, and also the Regional Planning Council. For those of you that follow that process, I don't know how they're survived. Their $25 million in state funding was vetoed for the second year in a row. That's sort of the big picture, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bob and Jose, both. These are the gentlemen that help us when we're in Tallahassee. For a lack of better title, governmental assistance. They go from from chambers to chambers to chambers, fighting for our issues, the issues of City of Homestead and Deep South Dade, for us to be able to hang in there, if you will, and retain a lot of the dollars that we've had for many years that return from Tallahassee back to a great city of Homestead. And I can tell you from my perspective, these people are the best in the business. You know, the Fuentes group along with you, all of you, you welcome us with open arms. You treat us with the utmost respect, and you work diligently. They work from 6 in the morning till midnight. We've been in some issues that we've worked till late hours in the evening and got back up the next morning and went at it all over again for 3 or 4 days in a row, and they do it for 3 or 4 months in a row. So I thank you from the Mayor of Homestead. Thank you very much for what you do for us, and I wish you guys well. Council.
Just a quick question. Can you forward us your presentation just so we could go over and review last year's performance or this year's past performance? There's the presentation, the legislative update. Is that something that you can share with us?
I can recreate it for you, certainly.
And just
thank you.
Email it to Marisol or Lourdes or Anna, and we'll share it.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, because there were a lot of good things that we actually held the line on. A lot of good things that we could have easily lost with this governor. We could have easily lost them. Yes.
The prison privatization issue. One vote.
Huge.
One vote.
One vote.
If you ever think one vote doesn't make a difference, 21-19 in the Senate.
I'm sure many of you heard that they were talking about privatizing the prison system, and it actually, the privatization failed by one vote. One. So one vote does. Every vote counts. There's no further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Sure, please. I just want to say, Mr. Levy, you guys have never let me down, and I've had some really deep conversations over the years, and you've told me when you think I'm thinking too big, and then again, you've just been there to make the dreams happen. So I appreciate everything y'all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jose, you want to say a couple words?
He wants to tell you about the $4 million that he snuck into the Water Management District budget that the governor found and vetoed last week. So that's what he wants to tell you about.
Sure. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, the next item on the agenda is we're going to look at the South Dade Soil and Water Conservation Districts, tab 3. Staff report.
Mayor and Council, staff request direction from Mayor and Council on a profit sharing agreement with South Dade Soil and Water Conservation District for future earnings. In exchange for a share of the revenues generated, the city will provide upfront permitting costs of approximately $25,000 in order to implement the project.
Questions from council? Yes, Vice Mayor Burgess.
Through the chairman to staff, we're given 2 options here with 3 choices on the 2 options. That's correct. We can go level 1 or level 2.
Right, it will be a combination of those 3 levels. They're going to start with level 1, but as they progress with the operations, it will jump into level 2, which is the bagging, and level 3, which is doing the totes. So, in essence, the profits will increase as their production gets more efficient.
then what is the, you give me anywhere from 24 to 19 years on 10% of the annual net profit. You go to the next one that says a year. So what are they proposing? When would we get the $25,000 back, I guess is my question.
Well, when they reach level 2, which they're estimating that after 3 months or so, they're going to be at that level doing the bags. That type of operation is about a 1.2-year return of investment.
Okay.
But again, we will include those conditions in a licensing agreement between us and the city, which will allow us to audit all their revenues to make sure that we are, in fact, getting 10%.
So in reality, we're not exposed for more than about 18 months then, because we would receive about $1,000 a month, you're saying, for 3 or 4 months, and then the next return would step up. So we're looking at maybe about 18 months.
According to the projections.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions from council? Just direction you want, right? Go get them. All right. Do we know if Patricia's going to make it? Because she told me 30, 40 minutes.
She sent an email. She said that the weather got really bad, and she's on the route. It's as of maybe 20 minutes ago, she was 5 minutes away, but it sounded like, you know, she was hitting some pretty heavy weather.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important that she's here when we start this next item, to hear from her first.
He's still waiting to speak, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Bill Townsend. I represent the South Dade Soil and Water Conservation District.
Hey, Bill.
I'm just here to answer any questions that you might
No, wait, hey, you're good to go. It's done. I wouldn't say anything. Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much, sir. So let's, with the council doesn't have an objection, let's move around committee hall. Yeah, what I'd like to do is defer from the Lillet item for another 5 or 10 minutes because Councilwoman Fairclough McCormick really had the direction from council here to go out and sit down and have, you know, communication, open lines of communication with Lillet. So I'd like to wait a few more minutes to see if she makes it, because I think the words that she has will be very important.
Mayor, I'm told she's here, so...
Okay, well, she's here, so we'll go forward. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on real quick till she gets settled in here. Committee of the Whole, tab 5, entertain a motion. Move it. Approve the minutes, April 3rd, 2012. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, tab 6, motion to place car 466 on the council agenda. Proposal, professional service for Bowery Drive. Okay, second, staff report.
Mayor, it's staff's recommendation the mayor and council approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to accept the proposal for professional services for Kimley Horn and Associates. This agreement is provided in accordance with the current non-exclusive professional services agreement, RFQ 2007-15, continuing professional services.
Okay, question or comments from council?
Just a comment, if I could. I see where they're going to be conduct weekly progress meetings. Is that something that we can get notes on so we know where stuff stands? I've asked for things like that in the past, and they don't seem to show. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Nays? Item carries. Next item, motion to place car 470 on council agenda.
Move it.
Amendment to professional services, again, 320.
Second.
Second, thank you. Staff report, tab 7.
Mayor, it's staff's recommendation that mayor and council approve the attached resolution amending the total fees authorized for the professional services agreement as approved by council on February 13th, 2012, and authorize the city manager continue to engage Messimer and Associates in connection with eminent domain and negotiated property acquisitions for the Southwest 328th Street project.
Okay, questions or comments from council? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Item carries. Tab 8, motion to place car 474 on council agenda, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency grant acceptance and establishment of the budget.
Second.
Thank you. Staff report.
Mayor, staff recommends the mayor council approve the attached resolution accepting grant number XP 964-13705-4 from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement amendment for additional funds and establish a budget of $485,000. City received an award of $500,000, of which $15,000 was retained by EPA to cover its administrative costs. City's match commitment is $396,902 over a course of 4 years. The grant expires on August 31st, 2016.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item carries. Tab 9, the motion to place car 477 on council agenda, wetlands restoration and mitigation for the Maury Drive Road extension.
Second.
Okay. Staff report.
Mayor, staff recommends the mayor council approve this motion to authorize the city to execute a mitigation credit purchase and sale agreement with the Florida Power and Light Everglades Mitigation Bank in order to meet permitting requirements for the Maury Drive expansion project. Participation in this program will fulfill the county and state permitting requirements for mitigation due to impacts on existing wetlands on the right-of-way along the area of the project.
Okay, questions or comments? Tab 9. Hearing no questions or comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Item carries. Okay, motion to place car 481 on council agenda, bid number 201228, Maury Drive, Southwest 320th, improvements from 157 Avenue to 152 Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Mayor, staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the award of the bid for the Maury Drive, Southwest 320th Street improvements from Southwest 157 Avenue to Southwest 152 Avenue to the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder, FHP Tectonics Corp., in the amount of $1,708,269.28. In addition, staff recommends authorizing the Public Works and Engineering Departments to allocate an additional 10%, $170,826.93 for any unforeseen conditions that might arise, and to spend any of the additional funds if deemed necessary by the city manager. Contingency allocation will not grant any entitlement to the contractor, but will simply enable the department and the city manager to process change orders, if any, without incurring any delays in order to ensure the completion of the project.
I'll move it, Mayor.
Okay, second.
Second with a comment.
Comments? Go ahead, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. To the manager and staff, and my colleagues, I'm not comfortable in giving almost 10% in overruns at this particular time as an automatic. I think that opens up the door for things to be overseen or redone or whatever the case may be. I was told the national average is 6%, so I would say let's start with half, and if that doesn't get them where they need to be, then bring it back before us. But I'm not comfortable at all giving them $170,000 up front for overruns at 10% of the job. So
Are you comfortable with 5%?
I mean, if the national average is 6, then I would say I would say 5, but I'm hoping for 0. If my colleagues would agree, I'll make that motion that we limit it to a 5% or to half of what was written in the proposal, and go from there.
Well, I think just a little more discussion. I've got some things that we may even add to it. Let me ask you: is the avenue right here? Is this 157 is correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. I didn't know it went that far west, but okay, that's good. And two, I think the second bidder was about $200,000 away, which was a local bidder. So now we're going to turn around and offer them 7%, which is about $180,000. So all we did was circumvent the local bidder. So I don't get it. I mean, I don't. What are we doing here? Why are we offering the 7% cost overrun?
Mayor, this procedure that you're seeing where staff is including a contingency fund, there's several ways to do this. The previous way, which has come before you before, which we're happy to continue going, which the way it was whenever staff has change orders they'll come to you and get approval.
Amen.
Some governments add a contingency fund into their budgets, but then they feel then the contractors will see it, and then this is their third way, but if you're not comfortable with this one, we'll go back and bring all change orders back to you.
No, I think the message that we're sending to the local public is a bad message. You're sending a message that the local guy got beat out, but we're going to offer 7% up, which gets you right back to that $200,000 difference. I think every single change order needs to come before this council.
That's fine.
Mayor?
Okay, you want to make that motion, Mr. Burgess? Yes.
I'm sorry, I completely agree with you. And my question is, because that's going to bring us right back up to the amount
It does.
that the second bidder made.
But if I may, though, whether it was the first bidder or the second bidder, that contingency fund would have been proposed anyway.
Okay.
So it wouldn't, it wouldn't have been, the first bidder would have gotten the extra cushion, but the second wouldn't have. As you've seen, several of these items have started where the staff is adding these into their proposal because they have come to you in the past with change orders, and then in some cases it's delayed them, but we're fine going back to the old system. So, but it wouldn't. There's no advantage of one over the other. This has nothing to do with a local contractor. This has to do with a process that the staff has begun to do, which is to incorporate a contingency fund in these projects at the front end, and whoever the selectee would have been, the contingency proposal would have been in place, but we're happy to take that out, no problem.
I got to speak out. I disagree. I think you're taking more and more responsibility away from the elected body of this community. These people here elected us. You didn't. So every time you take that responsibility off us because management and staff feels that they can handle it, all you're doing is putting more ripples in the water. And those ripples come back to us. They don't come to you. Each one of us catch that ripple. And I think it's wrong. So quit taking it off us. Quit asking staff to take that responsibility. We chose that. We chose to be up here. We chose to take that responsibility. Don't allow them to do the 7%. Have each change order come back to us every time. Don't go further with it. The next item, the next item. And I keep seeing it happen. It's not what this body was set up to do. So I believe that we are responsible. We'll speak up as responsible people. If they find a sinkhole in that thing and they can prove to us that the sinkhole fell through and they got to have X, Y, Z of whatever to fill it, I think we're sharp enough people. We'll vote it up.
And that's why it's on the agenda tonight for you to make that decision. So I understand.
I just say in the future, I prefer you not to try to offer us a way out.
So let me understand right now, the motion is at 5%?
No, I'll retract
sorry.
that original motion, and we'll make a motion to remove that, stick with with what the bid is that was submitted without the overrun at all, without a overrun contingency.
And this project is very important to the start of the school. It's very important. Do we have enough teeth in this contract, Richard, that actually puts them in high gear if we need them in high gear before that school opens in August? And if not, do we have enough teeth in this contract to go around them and hire somebody else to finish the project before that school opens in August?
I mean, they've been given the bid, so...
This is a company out of Chicago, right, Illinois, that we're using for our local road.
Right. You know what I'll do is between now and when it comes on the council, I'll look at that back at the bid documents and see what it says with respect to that, and I'll be able to answer your question.
Please, I'll ask the same question again during the council meeting. So I want to make sure that there are strong teeth in this contract, that it says if they do not prevail or complete during the time of opening that school, they will pay some serious damages. And enough to cover our tail for a change, and enough to bring somebody in to finish the job. Because I think 18% in this day and time is to me scary. Scary. Okay, we've got the motion on the table. You want to phrase it for us, Richard?
Or, no, basically you're going to approve the item without the additional 10% for unforeseen circumstances. So it's just going to be without the 10%.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Item carries. Last item we'll do before we move back up is Park and Recreation Committee. Motion to place
Second,
Thank you.
please.
Second. Staff report.
Homestead Homestead is requesting that mayor and council authorize the city manager to approve a waiver of usage fees in the amount of $150 for the use of two pavilions, number 6 and number 7, at Mayor Roscoe Warren Municipal Park on May 25th, 2012, according to the city's code, chapter 20, section 20-11, fees and charges. The city council sets fees and has the right to waive parks and recreation fees by a majority vote.
Questions and comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Item carries. Okay, we'll move back to the lay item, and I'd like at this point to bring the item on the table here. It's for discussion, so we don't really need a motion, and I'd like to turn the gavel over to Ms. Patricia Fairclough-McCormick to report back to us.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank all of you for being here. I apologize for the delay. I was in traffic for 2.5 hours because of my distance as well as the weather. But nonetheless, I'm here, and thank you for reserving this item until I arrived. Well, at our last meeting, Mr. John Ruiz from the Lay, if you would like to come up, John? He had requested a meeting with myself, the city manager, and a team of people to discuss the property insurance issue, and to have an intelligent conversation about how we're going to move forward with this. So we had that meeting on April 20th, which I feel was a very productive meeting because Mr. Ruiz had the opportunity to discuss proposals on how we can rectify this insurance issue. And before I allow him to discuss his proposals, I just would like to say, and I'm totally honest, I don't like the way this is going. It looks like it's a bad landlord-tenant dispute, and I don't like it. It appears as if, and this is just Patricia's perspective, that emotions are getting involved, vendettas are getting involved, and it's this back and forth. But there's too much at stake for all of us to drop the ball. I look at kids here who depend on Lale for after-school sports. I look at residents here who can potentially bear the brunt of this if we don't resolve it. So I feel the city and Lale need to come together collectively to resolve this issue. Because if not, it is not going to be a win-win. To me, it'll be a lose-lose. So we need to come together in a spirit of cohesiveness and collegiality to determine what's going to be our next step to rectify this issue. So I'll reserve the rest of my comments until this discussion plays out. So if you would like to speak.
Good evening to everyone. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say tonight because things have escalated to the point that there may not be a return at this point in time. I think taking it from the mayor himself right now, I think that a lot of things get done without council's approval, and unfortunately, we're in a bad situation right now. I do want to say that, Patricia, from your perspective, even from the chief of police, I mean, we've been treated very well by the city of Homestead, and I think that there are certain individuals and people here and departments, I mean, I take my hat off to the police department. They're excellent, but unfortunately, there's things that are being done that people are not looking at the big picture. And, I run an organization, and we're an individual, and the people that work for me, have families and kids, and we just will not tolerate the type of conduct that we've been exposed to. What happened at the stadium the day that we pretty much had an army sent out there, like if my people were criminals, thank God that the police department treated my people very well, and that, they did the right thing. But, there was absolutely no place for that, and, we've done what we're supposed to do. I thank Councilman Shelley also for going out there. We said we were going to pay the insurance. We've paid the insurance. Just today we sent the payment for the utility bills. Even though we disagree that we owe those amounts, we're still making good by our word. But I will tell you, and I want no one to take this personally, but At this point in time, I'm defending my company, I'm defending my people, and right now, it's not good. And it's getting worse by the second. And I'm sorry, and Steve, I appreciate everything you've done. Again, you're the only one that didn't vote for us. But everything you've done, and if you continue to push the city the way that you're pushing it, I think you're doing good things for the city. And I know there's other people on the panel that do so as well. Elvis has provided support, even though, I know you've had your situation, but my hands are tied at this point in time. Lale Sports and John Ruiz will not tolerate. I made it to where I am today with my company because I'm a very good person, but when it's time to fight, I will fight for my people. And at this point in time, that's where we're at. Now, I will tell you by the same token, we think that we are totally entitled to close the road in front of the stadium. And I will not do that because it'll affect parents and kids. And that's the reason why I haven't done that. And, there's a lot of kids here. I don't even know if they're here to talk about the stadium, but, the AYSO used our baseball fields to play soccer on. And I think Councilman Shelley, before we took the stadium, he said, are you sure you're going to still provide that to the residents? And we did so. Well, we got $5,000 from the AYSO, but it cost us almost $30,000 to fix the fields afterwards. So we've done everything we possibly could do. I tallied up what we spent at that stadium. It's north of $4 million what we spent in 1 year. And, for people to come back and criticize anything that we've done when we took that stadium, and I have pictures. I mean, we're going to publicize these pictures. There were 179 frogs. There was standing water with mosquitoes. The place was totally deteriorated. The fire alarm didn't work at all. We put it back to work. We just have the documentation. Kiki's holding it. The fire system is back up and running. To not have somebody pick up the phone and just basically say, listen, we have these questions. What are they? And just basically to take, the baton in the hand and do whatever they wanted to do, well, that's why we're here. And unfortunately, and Patricia, I appreciate, everything that you've done, but, none of the council members have the power to do anything by themselves. So I can live with decisions that the council makes, informed decisions, and I think that that's what I said last time. The problem is, I respond for my organization, but then in the city, any particular person can send you a letter and take positions that are contrary to what the city's position should be, because you are elected officials, and you should be making decisions as a whole, not unilateral decisions. And you know what? The buck stops here tonight, unfortunately. And it stops here because I filed a lawsuit already against the city. I filed 2 lawsuits. And unfortunately, and Steve, I apologize personally, it's nothing against you. I really wish that I could do something different, but I was cornered today by the letter that Mr. Gretza sent. And as a result of that letter, I took action before 4 o'clock. I filed 2 lawsuits today, and one of them is a class action against the city for overbilling its residents for garbage and water. And you know what? That's a big problem for the city. And you know what? I'm not going to say any more because there's really not much more for me to say. At this point in time, the council and the city can take whatever position they want. We've done what we had to do. Now, I will continue to operate the stadium the way that we've been operating the stadium. We're going to do it responsibly. And by the way, since they said that we were having an after-school program, well, guess what? Ms. Fernandez went to the city and we got a permit from the city for running what we're running. We don't run a daycare. We run an after-school program. It's a totally different thing. And because of that, we have what we need. And we can be splitting hairs all day. I don't want a letter-writing war, which is what it became, a letter-writing war. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate that we've destroyed such a good thing when the city had that place for, I think, probably almost close to 20 years. And I want people to remember one thing. It was Lale Sports that came to the city of Homestead when the stadium was sitting there idle. And I met council member by council member. and we brought our proposal to the table. It was only after that that it was placed as an RFP, and then other people came to compete with us. But it was us that came to the city. It was us that said, we're going to bring our organization. It was us that brought our people here, our LED screens, our cameras, the rodeo, you know. I mean, do we lose sight of the fact of what the reality is? Or are we so intermingled and intertwined with our own personal stakes that we don't make decisions for the city? You know, I make decisions for the good, not of myself. I make decisions that are supposed to be good for the community, and they're supposed to be good for my people, as well as the people of the city. And that's where we're at now. So, unless you guys have any questions for me, you know, I sincerely apologize to a lot of you guys, because, you know, I didn't intend for this to be in the situation that we're here now. But it is what it is. You know what? You're going to punch me, and I'm going to punch back.
Well, yeah.
I was hoping it didn't go there. And I kind of wanted us to have a conversation about the proposals, the two proposals that you proffered at our meeting and subsequently emailed. But it appears as if that's out the door now.
Patricia, as a man, not as the owner of a company, I will sit with you and with your attorneys and whoever it is, because Lale Sports and John Ruiz continues and will continue to fight for what we believe in. This is not about a lawsuit. This is not about Mr. Gretza sending a letter trying to find and how to dot every I and cross every T. Because if that was the case, then we wouldn't have been overbilled $22,000 in garbage. Because if the city is trying to look at every I that's dotted and every T that's crossed, then why was it that when Ms. Waldman stood here or sat here in March of this year, why didn't she look at the bills and find out that we were overbilled $22,000? Why is it always that, you know, mud is being thrown at our organization? I guarantee you that there's a lot of mud that could be thrown to the city in the city's direction. I guarantee you. And there's a lot of mud. But that's not what we're here about.
Right.
But ultimately, again, the only thing I can say and the only thing I can promise you is that I will continue to keep an open mind, but you know what? I'm not going to run an organization where every single day the city can decide for one person or another that they can go knocking on our door and stop our operations. Because what happened the night, you know, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night, I mean, there was about 60 people there that invaded and raided our stadium. And that's unacceptable to us. It's just unacceptable. I think it's unacceptable to the residents of this community that things like that can occur. So the answer to your question is I will be more than happy to sit with you or whoever the city designates. And, you know, there's people that really are good at me. I mean, David's done a great job, too. I mean, he sat with us, and I think that we communicate very well with certain people. But I can't be communicating with you, Patricia, and saying, okay, let's try to do these things, and then all of a sudden I get bombarded with a letter that says that we violated every single term of the lease. Because if you're going to fight that way, trust me. I mean, I made my living from doing multi-district litigation. So it's not going to happen, you know, in our field. You know what? And I got into sports, but my real field is the practice of law. So, I guess, going back again, I will be more than happy to sit down with you. I've had many conversations with you. I think that by now you guys know exactly how I am. I don't have hairs on my tongue. I don't hold back punches. And when I tell you that I'm going to do something, I will do it.
Right. But now is the time to have that conversation about the proposal. We sat down, we've met. I don't think there's another need to sit down to discuss the proposals again while everyone is here. Let's have that conversation. I know the utilities may be an issue, but let's deal with the insurance. And you're going to continue to operate there. We have to resolve that insurance piece.
And I agree with you, but we've already paid the insurance. We sent payment to the city.
Right, moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I reiterate that we want to have, you know, at least a 4-year time period where we're not paying the insurance. Not that we're not going to pay it at all, but that we want to place it towards the back because I mean, take it from this perspective. you're strangling an organization. You're saying, you got to pay insurance, we're already supposed to pay property taxes, then you want to shut down everything we do, because you say you can't operate, an after-school program because we want to call it a daycare. By the way, you have a violation with your fire alarm safety code, which is not true because you can operate under fire watch. So then, how can we operate? How can we make something work when every time that we're trying to make it work, you hit us over the head with a hammer? And by the way, it's not a real hammer, but it appears to be a hammer, because the reality is, I don't control the police department, and, I guess the chief in some way or fashion, if they tell me, you got to go over there, he has to go. You can't blame him for that, but how can we operate like that? How can an organization truly operate that way? It's impossible. So yeah, I could stand here and tell you, yeah, we want to have all these things worked out, but it means nothing, because tomorrow Mr. Gretz will send another letter that we're violating 5 other provisions of the lease, and I can't just not do anything. So unfortunately, we're in a situation where I don't know what could be done. My proposal is, I think that amongst yourselves, you should come up with a proposal that you bring to me, and that you sit down with me and you tell me, Mr. Ruiz, we're going to put in an agreement that from this point forward, nothing can happen at that stadium unless council approves it.
I love it.
And unless there's thing, and I'll tell you something, I will not continue to operate under these situations, because it's not fair to our organization, it's not fair to my people, that they have to, be on the lookout to see what's going to happen next. So I think the first part that we really need to deal with is, how can we operate at that stadium and truly operate without the fear of people from the city in one fashion or another doing something. Of course, I'm not saying that, if something illegal is happening at the city, like there's a crime or something, I'm not saying that, we're not being ridiculous. I'm talking about the provisions of the lease. I'm talking about our obligations and the city's obligations. And if we can do that, I'll be more than happy to sit with you, Patricia, and come back here, but it's got to be, meaningful. Really, it's just got to be meaningful. And, I think that you can do it. I think you can do it, but you can't do it if every time you do one thing, there's 3 things done behind your back or that you don't know about. And that's my concern.
Before I release it back to the mayor, I don't want it to seem like there's this dark cloud over City Hall and everybody here is out to get you, because the city has been very hospitable to you and allowing you.
I said that. I agree with you.
Right. I just want to reiterate that and make that clear.
I said there's a select few.
Right.
And you're not one of the select few, and the select few is very few.
But even before I came here, I came and you signed the lease, the city waived the utilities, they, waived your insurance from January, April? For 6 months.
6 months.
So we have been very hospitable to you, so don't paint a picture.
I am very honest, and I will say that, yes, the city was very good to us. And then we tried to do our best and comply with everything we said we were going to comply.
Right.
I don't know where the tables turned. But at some point in time, I believe, my personal insight is that it had nothing to do with Valet Sports. And it had to do with internal feud within the city. And then it turned on us for one reason or another. And unfortunately, we're here now because we shouldn't have been in this type of a situation. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm not saying that we have not been treated well by the city of Homestead. We're not being treated well now. And I'm not saying that the city of Homestead is every council member sitting here today. I'm not saying that that's the case. I have and will continue to reach out to those people that I believe are doing good for the community. I believe, that there's people that are council members here, people that work for the city, that really have the best interests of the city at heart and have the best interests of the people at heart. And that's what I believe. And again, you know what? That's all I can tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. I would like to hear from my colleagues on council. on their perspective. What are your thoughts about this whole Mala issue, Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mr. McCormick.
Mr. Shelley, just before you start to comment, and not to put a damper on the discussion, but Mr. Ruiz has told us that he has filed 2 lawsuits against the city. So I'd urge you to be extremely careful in your comments because, it sounds like there's some thought of working this out, but I have to look at the situation as if we're going to be in litigation. And unfortunately, by Mr. Ruiz filing this lawsuit, that he well knows, we're now the city's now a defendant, and any comments that you might make, I don't know what the other lawsuit is. I know he mentioned one dealing with water and sewer fees. I don't know that you mentioned...
It's a breach of contract.
A breach of contract. So basically, Mr. Ruiz is basically saying that the city is in default on the lease. You have a letter from the manager outlining a number of items where the city feels that Mr. Ruiz is in default of the lease. So I would just urge the council to be extremely careful in terms of the comments that you make. Now that the lawsuit has been filed, we do have the ability to have an executive session on this to find out how you want to proceed. I think any comments, as we've learned, that are made at council meetings become part of court pleadings and so forth. And so I just encourage Mr. Shelley, Councilman Shelley, I know that you know as an attorney, but for the others, to be very careful in terms of your comments because we are in a little different posture, and I know that Mr. Ruiz understands that by filing the lawsuit, that he's changed the dynamics here. So that's where we are.
Go ahead, sir. Thanks for that. No, I just have a brief comment, and that is, this is a frustrating process, and that this had and still has potentially the ability to be a good thing for our city, and to see this thing deteriorate at the speed at which it deteriorated is kind of upsetting and frustrating for me sitting here watching it. And for me, I think a lot of it, again, we had the issue here with the insurance, and I think that was ultimately the issue that needed to be discussed, and that, from the beginning, we needed to figure out what we were going to do as a council and as Lele Sports to work out that, if anything, whatever our position was. And ultimately, it ended up spiraling out of control into extraneous issues and posturing and trying to each party position itself as being the right party by splitting hairs. I think the blame is on both sides, not just the city had to take their legal position, Lele took their legal position. I understand that. That'll be sorted out potentially in the courts. I don't think the lawsuit is the best course of action for all parties, but if that's where it's going, then unfortunately we'll all have to deal with it. But I think ultimately the insurance is the issue. And so I think that had we resolved that, or if we resolve that, maybe we can mend fences and go forward. But to keep focusing on all this extraneous stuff is going to just keep making this escalate more and more and more, and it will never get resolved. And ultimately, we'll all spend a lot of money in attorney's fees, defending lawsuits, and litigating, and ultimately nothing's going to prevail. So, I mean, it's just my frustration. That's my position.
I feel equally as frustrated as you. And I agree with you on a lot of the points. The only thing that changes that is that even if we were to resolve the insurance issue, we still can't operate at a stadium where every little detail of what we do is being reviewed and scrutinized, because then that means tentatively now we can't run an after-school program because they're calling it a daycare. Then we can't have Venezuelan players because they're going to send people over there saying that, they weren't fed. And then, ultimately, they went there, they did everything, and what did they solve? Nothing was solved. We lost the contract. Venezuelan players moved out. And now none of those international players want to come back because it hit all the press in Venezuela. So, see, one little action by the city causes a lot of reaction.
A lot of ways.
And that's the part that becomes troublesome. And yes, listen, perhaps we are, at fault for, positioning ourselves, but the reality is that we have to. I mean, I can't, as the owner of the enterprise and as a lawyer, obviously I'd be committing malpractice against myself if I didn't protect my company. And, we're not talking about peanuts. We've put $4 million into that stadium. So, we've done a lot of things there. So what am I supposed to do? The insurance, yes, is the issue that surfaced, but when the meeting here that we weren't here for started, it didn't start with the insurance. What it started with was Councilwoman Judy Waldman saying that LA owed $41,000 in utilities. And I heard for almost an entire hour a dialogue of how difficult it was to communicate with our organization and, the frustration. And the reality is that we didn't owe $41,000. The reality is that we had been overbilled. So from an organization standpoint, I think that if I was to accuse you of something and you later found out, or how can you accuse me that, I didn't pay my car bill or my car payment if you overbilled me? I didn't owe it to you to begin with. And here you have this whole dialogue where, it goes out into the media and the press of how we owe, money from, it just wasn't true. And the insurance issue, we got it waived through January the 2nd. It's clear that we brought a cashier's check to pay in January. They told us that they couldn't accept it because council had to approve it, and from the point in time that it wasn't approved, we came back over and over again, and the issue was it should have been only the insurance. But I didn't bring the utility bill issue up.
I keep saying that.
You know what? I can be blamed for many things, but I did not bring up the utility bill. Nobody called up LA Sports and said, hey, by the way, we have a problem with the utility bills. No, it was brought up here in public, and it wasn't true. It was a misrepresentation. And there were many misrepresentations made. And I, as the owner of the company, and as someone who wants to continue to conduct business in Homestead, I cannot allow people to misrepresent things. I can accept the council voting against me or saying, listen, we're not going to waive the insurance. I can accept all that, but I can't accept misrepresentations, and I can't accept, dealing with a council member and trying to work something out, and then something else happens behind the scenes where everything changes.
And I understand that, and other council members and the staff can address some of those issues. My only concern is that, just as you stated, that LeLay, as an attorney, you had to protect your interest. You had to fire shots across the bow. Our staff did the same thing. They had to protect the legal interest, otherwise it'd be malpractice for them. And so I think what happened, though, is ultimately once the shots started being exchanged, it couldn't stop. And as an attorney, just like you're an attorney, sometimes us attorneys, we mess up business deals because we focus so much on the legal methodology and what needs to be done to protect the legal interest that it screws up the business deal. And that's what's happening here, is all this posturing by both sides has screwed up this business deal. And ultimately, it is going to be possibly the end of LeLay and what the potential of LeLay was. And so my main point tonight is not the posturing. You guys can continue posturing all you want, and it'll get sorted out. My biggest thing is that this posturing needs to stop, and we need to come to the business side of things and get done what needs to be done. And for me, my position is simple. I don't agree to waive the insurance. That's my position. It always has been. We stay by the obligations that are in the lease at this point in time. And that would be my position going forward. And so anyway, I'm done. That's my comment, but thank you.
Mayor?
Back over to the mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I would have to say ditto on both of my colleagues that have just spoken. I think Patricia said it best, where this is looking like as a lose-lose. And when I signed up as an elected official, all I wanted to do is win-wins. And when we're on that campaign trail, when we're talking to the people we represent, we're discussing win-wins. Going back to what Councilman Shetty said, yes, we understand that the legal shots are starting to get in the way. But looking at the bigger picture and refocusing is what we should be doing. Refocusing on moving forward and making sure that what we first decided to do, which is to come into a partnership, to work together as a relationship, that we should continue to focus and work on the better good for the city. It's great to see traffic over there, the stadium alive, people coming into this town from internationally, nationally. We know baseball teams are coming in throughout Miami-Dade County, and we're just starting to see the potential. How long have you been there already?
We've been there since June, because the rest of the time was basically rebuilding.
How many months? Almost a year. And within a year, we've seen you've got the building up and running. It's working, and I understand your frustration. Where we don't want to hinder your operation. We know it's not easy, and it's a tough build to foot. And unless we work with you and support you, to bring in, I mean, what was the original discussion, teams coming from everywhere, other sport opportunities coming in, if we keep getting in the way, then it's going to handcuff you in being successful. Because we know that those are different revenue streams for your organization that's going to continue to foot the bill for that operation so it can continue to move forward. It's kind of funny that I look back and I remember, reading blogs and listening to, our citizens where we need to do something about the stadium. Ms. Wallman was up here, so we need to get her painted, fixed up, and out working. And the cry of this community when I was campaigning back in '07 is, you have not done anything with that stadium. And it was actually a discussion when we were campaigning. We're going to find a way to do something. And every council member up here that ran that year, which is all of us excluding Patricia and John Burgess, we all said we're going to make something happen. And guess what? It did happen, and we were all elated and happy to see that it's moving forward. I agree with, I don't like in the way where it's heading to. And I am more of the hopeful type that I think that if we work together, this is going to be a gem in the city. So you still have, my support on that. Hopefully, we could resolve this. The tit for tats, I think we should work on it. I was, obviously, I've been away for a few months on some personal matters that everyone is aware with, and I have watched the videos, and I watched the meetings that happened. And from my last time that I was up here, I saw where we're going to work on resolving the small issues so that we could continue to move forward. And I think we know that, with, through reading the details, it was just working out those details and moving forward. So we hope that we can still work this out. And as I'm hearing right now from two other of my elected officials here, that's the way we want to go. So hopefully we can work that out. I'll reserve the rest of my comments for now. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Paul.
I'm sure if this was happening to any of you, that you would do the same thing that I'm going to do now. And all I have in this world is my integrity. And I know what happened. And I'm not trying to fight with you, Mr. Ruiz. I was your biggest fan, your very biggest fan. So I'm just going to turn this over to staff, and I'm going to reserve everything to the executive session.
Awesome. I'm ready. Turn what to staff?
Yeah. I think, are you looking for clarification as to sort of the sequence of the events with respect to the utility bills? I don't know who can, let's go through that.
Since we've been asked to respond, I sat here quietly, and I totally understand nobody likes fighting. We don't like fighting, and in fact, my office negotiated that contract. My office did everything we could to make that work, and we were really proud of what we did. In fact, we came here and we presented it to you, we recommended it to you, because we thought it was a terrific thing for the city. And so, at the last meeting I heard communication problems and this and that. Well, it really comes down to this. Sometimes there is a communication problem, and it comes down to this. Two parties get together, they agree to a series of terms, it's put down on a sheet of paper, and both parties sign it, and in this case, the elected body voted on it, and we're charged with enforcing what's in that agreement. And so month after month, problem after problem, this became a long, drawn-out thing for us in the government. And still, every time they called, we tried to accommodate them as best as we could. Hours and hours of staff time have been put on this thing to make sure that it works. But what we can't overcome and what we don't have the authority to do is to decide what in the contract we like as staff and what we don't like as staff. Because ultimately, you are the policymakers. And when you say it shall be these 20 or 30 items, that's what we're responsible for carrying out. And should you choose along the way to change those items, we're more than happy to work through the process to get them changed, which is what we did from time to time when requests came that they wanted exceptions or they wanted time or they couldn't meet their insurance requirements. And one other thing that we didn't do, that we probably shouldn't have done, is we looked the other way when the bills started coming in late. When they didn't pay their utility bills on time, we looked the other way. And what we should have done is come to you earlier on and said, you know what, they're not paying their bills, and the contract says they have to pay their bills. And so each month goes by, and we have all these issues, one issue after the other, and it's okay, because we're a family, we're a partnership, and we tried the best we could to hold this relationship together. But then what I heard just 20 minutes ago is the most disturbing thing about somehow characterizing what happened that this city staff did when you all received, and I didn't receive a copy of it, you all received an email from a resident of this city alleging bad things happening to juveniles. Now I can tell you this, forget about anything else here. When it comes to allegations about juveniles, there is no discussion, there is no debate. We turn it over to staff, and they do what they're obligated to by law to ensure that children are not in jeopardy. And quite frankly, to listen to this, when after the staff shows up, they find out that there are kids sleeping in a locker room for in excess of a month that came here from another country, many of which don't speak English, who don't know what's happening and don't understand that there's no fire alarm in the building, there's no sprinkler system in the building. Oh, by the way, the zoning code doesn't permit them to sleep in there. It's not a habitable space. It's not some place where kids are supposed to live. And so the staff handled this perfectly appropriate. We got the email. We got the video link that was on there. We watched it. We saw one of the students in the program making allegations. We saw beds in a locker room that didn't belong there. And that dictates only one response, and that is this government needs to ensure that kids are not being jeopardized in any way. We did everything we could to minimize it. We sent the staff over there. I called Mr. Rees ahead of time to let him know that we were sending people there. But one thing I cannot do is I cannot say to a police chief, oh, by the way, there's allegations about potential problems with children. Let's sit down with the person that's being accused first, have a conversation with them, knowing that the children in their building. Let's sit down and notify them first that we have a problem, and then go and investigate. We don't conduct business that way, and I don't think the law allows us to veer off course. So the back and forth letters started as soon as we went over there and looked into these allegations. And the truth of the matter is what we found was he signed an agreement, which he wasn't allowed to sign, with another entity that came from Canada that obligated him to sleep and house quarter people inside a facility that is not a habitable space, that's not permitted by law. And so for us, it really isn't personal. This is really about carrying out the laws of the city and the state and carrying out your mandate. If you want to waive insurance, you have the power to waive insurance. If you want the kids to sleep in a locker room, you don't have the power to do that without a lot of changes in the laws. They have to get the sprinkler system up. They have to get the fire alarm up. We have to change the zoning. We have to convert the space into a habitable space. But what you cannot have is you cannot have children sleeping in a space that they're not permitted to by law. And I thought to myself, what if that were my kid? What if I sent my kid over to another country where he didn't speak the language, and I found out that he's sleeping in some locker room that he's not allowed to by law? And I'd be pretty upset. So I can assure you, if your direction is waive the insurance, waive the utility bills, whatever you want to do, we're happy to memorialize it and put it in writing. But the characterization that somehow staff did something wrong is absolutely untrue, and we have, I think, an obligation to carry out your direction, and we've been doing that as best as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, just two words in response to that. Number one.
Mayor, again, I sat here at the last meeting. It was 2.5 hours of floor debating and tit for tat. And, if we talk about, not wanting tit for tat, I don't really understand why at these meetings we're allowing, an unlimited debate on this matter, particularly when we're in litigation.
But you just took the floor from a council person and you sat and gave a
But I was
presentation for 10
asked.
solid minutes.
Mayor,
and now you're going to tell him he can't, excuse me, I have the floor. And now you're going to tell him he can't speak? Sir, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things, because I want to make sure that the record is clear. If they're saying that we were paying the utilities late, we're talking about the utilities that we were overbilled for. So I'm not really sure how you can pay late something that you never owed to begin with. Setting that aside, I want to make sure also that it's important to note that the agreement that we reached, and we disagree legally, the lease states that we can either enter short-term leases and or user agreements. This is not a short-term lease. We had a user agreement. The user agreement that we had, because they're no longer there, was for an entity from Canada to bring players, and the last time that we were here, we had a number of scouts there that had come to see those players. That was the purpose for which we obtained the stadium, to promote players, bring players, and right now we have, I think, over 300 players that wanted to come to train out of this facility. These are players that are signing major league contracts. And because of what transpired, now that has been totally hampered. So I want to make sure, again, because, we could stand up here and split hairs all day, but I'm not going to quarrel about what the lease says or what it doesn't say. There's a big picture, and the big picture is, and again, I'm still willing to sit down with whether it's Patricia or whether it's you, Mayor, or Elvis, or whoever wants to sit. I'll sit down with Ms. Waltman. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is to deviate from the true issue at hand. And the true issue at hand is that there's a monster stadium that sat for many years, that we had the courage and the drive, because not everybody wants to do that. And I don't even give credit to myself. I've stood here many times. I give credit to my people, to the people that go there, and they're here every single day. That's what this is about. This is about getting that stadium up and running. This is about, instead of saying here how the utilities, were or were not paid or what we got overbilled for, this is about putting on the record that we had more than 32,000 people come here last year, that you can go to Red Lobster and you can go to the Sonic and you can go to the malls and they'll tell you how many people LA Sports brought to your city, which is supposed to be our city as well, because we feel as LA Sports that we were integrated into LA Sports, but we felt like we were being kicked out of the city because of all these things that transpired.
All right. Officer, will you flip that AC off? Because I want the same consideration. Thank you. Look, we sat here and listened to everyone pretty much all night long. John, you're welcome to speak before me. Go ahead. I don't mind.
I can follow.
The issue at hand tonight here was the insurance. The issue at hand tonight is still the insurance. And I think that Mr. Shelley said it best. He's not willing to waive it. But you're not asking to waive it. You're asking to put it on the back after 4 years. You'll pay it in 4 years. I think, in the best interest of all these children out here and the LA Sports, that we need to consider the issue that was here tonight before us, the insurance issue. And let's move forward with a vote, up or down, that we move the insurance to the back of the fourth year. It's not hard. It's our job. These people elected us to do this job, and I think that we need to go forward. It's not about the manager making the decision, and he made it very clear. It's not about him. Look, you're the policy and procedure. Starts and stops right here. And I think that if that's what you're telling us, it has to be done to make this program work. Then I think that we need to look at what we were here for tonight. I'm sorry you did what you did. I didn't know about it until you just now threw it out, and it really kind of made me sick to my stomach because I really thought we were going to work through this tonight. I'm sorry for what you went through because I really believe it wasn't very long after the council meeting before someone in Homestead found out that you were doing something terribly wrong out there. And I don't agree with you housing children out there. If that's not a dorm. But I think that your reputation is damaged in the overseas or in the Latin American situation now. I mean, because it was spread wide and far. But I think we could handle it and save what we have here now. We can save what we have for our community. And I looked at the numbers that Mr. Vice Mayor was asking about. You know, how many kids are local, how many kids are out of town? And the numbers came back. I think 70%, 70% local. 30% out of town. So that says a lot to me. That's volumes. So I'm prepared to make a motion tonight, and up or down, we voted. And I think that we're not going to forgo the insurance. We're going to place the insurance in the back of the fourth year. And that's going to help you to move forward and make this process work. The other issues you work out, we've been told not to speak on those issues. I don't want to speak on those issues. I just think that it's become way blown out of proportion for what we can settle here right now, tonight. I actually believe there are 4 votes here that'll allow this program to go forward.
Mr. Mayor, I do think it would be good if you could take that as a motion as to whether the council's interested in moving ahead with the proposal to move the insurance to the end of the lease. And if you could get a second and take a vote on that, we would know where we are in the insurance issue. And then staff would have to... Is that
okay with you? I mean, I want to be fair on both sides. I mean...
I couldn't hear everything he said. He said to vote on the insurance issue.
Yeah, we're going to vote on the issue. You know,
I don't have an issue.
I think it's important to clarify because there's been a lot of conversations back and forth, and the last thing we need is more disagreement. Okay, do we know exactly what we mean by moving the insurance? Are we talking about...
Will you explain it for the public?
No, I'd like somebody to explain it. Mr. Reeves to explain what exactly his proposal is on the insurance moving at the end of the lease.
That basically means that from the time that we started the commencement of the lease through the end of the fourth year, that we would start paying the insurance on year number 5 and basically doubling up, or whatever the numbers work out to be, so that we catch up that last 3-year time period. Because what we're dealing with here is it takes a while to get this big freight train going. And once it gets going, then it'll be a lot easier to be able to maneuver the train and make sure that it goes in the direction we want it to go. But right now...
Are you saying that for the first 3 years or for the
first 4 years?
For the first 4 years, you would not pay insurance, and that during the remainder of the term, on an equal basis, that insurance would be paid. Whatever that insurance cost would have been paid. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's title that insurance, that replacement cost. It's not insurance.
No,
it's not insurance.
It's
the what's it called?
It's a property damage insurance.
Property damage insurance. Right. That he won't then put the property damage insurance back to the fourth year. Okay.
That's correct.
All right, so. Meaning that he's going to repay what in the first 4 years?
Starting from zero, from the beginning of the lease.
The $500,000.
To the beginning of the lease, from day 1 through the end of the fourth year, whatever the insurance cost would have been during that 4-year period, it's going to be paid during the following 3 years remaining.
So minimally, assuming the insurance costs are what they are now, without any increases, we're talking $480,000.
And your intention still, in the 7th year, to buy the stadium, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's...
Or before.
Or before.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick number I worked out. So that would be about $25,000 per month that you would start paying in year 5, June
Yes.
of 2016,
That's correct.
Or by the stadium.
or whatever the insurance costs. That's it. That's it. Just using round numbers at today's
I
cost.
mean, right now, it's about 11,000.
Right,
It's
and
not
that's
that
what
much more.
I used as my multiplier.
Yes.
Suggest to take a roll call on it, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we will. Does everybody understand it?
I understand it, I just have a question.
Sure, please.
So if we're going to defer this for the first 4 years, then that means the city will have to incur the cost for insurance, essentially the taxpayers, up until you repay. I'm going to be honest, I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm willing to negotiate and potentially do like a sliding scale, 25% of the monthly payments the first year, and continue until we progress to 100, because this is unbudgeted. We haven't budgeted for it, and you know, we also have an obligation, and Councilman Wallman would always say we have to protect the public's purse, and we have to do that. So I don't feel comfortable deferring it to the 4th year. I think we should negotiate the amount you have to pay per month. That's just me.
I think perhaps what you could do is revisit the issue, which is one of the things I suggested at our last meeting, revisit the issue after, like, let's say the 3rd year, and see where we're at there. The problem is that there's a lot of weight on an organization right now that had to get this going, and we're still losing over $100,000 a month. So when you throw the insurance on there, it's like someone that's already carrying a lot of weight on their back, and then you put another, every 5 to 10 pounds makes a huge difference. You know, that's what we're really dealing with. So we're really dealing with allowing us to get everything up and running, because it's difficult, and much more now so that all this has transpired, because people, people get all different types of notions about what happened. I mean, I'll just tell you this, we almost lost, luckily the gentleman knew that we were able to explain it, but we had a contract with a double ABC, which is the biggest organization for youth baseball, and the word was that we were trafficking, this is what we were told, that we were trafficking illegal players. So when you almost lose 6 contracts, I mean, we were able to explain that that was absolutely untrue, and so that it's clear also. It wasn't La Ley Sports that was supposed to feed these kids. As a matter of fact, when the entire investigation was done and over, it was clear that the kids were still being fed. But when the kids wanted to eat something else, that gentleman over there, Kiki Fernandez, would tell the kids, hey, don't worry about it. We'll give you, you know, whatever food. We don't want you to be hungry. And we, as an organization, last summer, we kept in my house. I kept over 20 Venezuelan kids in my house, and I fed them. And I still have one here with me that we feed, and he lives with a baseball coach. So we're doing good things for these kids. You know what? We, as an organization, I think that just anyone that has their kids in our after-school program knows how we treat kids. So I don't have any fear whatsoever of what we're doing as an organization, what our people do. So, yeah, what we're asking the city to do at this point in time is, you know, any relationship needs work. And it needs work constantly. So, yeah, I understand Mr. Gretza says there's an agreement. We're not saying that there isn't an agreement. But by the same notion, Patricia, yeah, it's either, well, we're going to have the taxpayers, you know, brunt the amount of the cost. But before we got to this situation, the taxpayers were paying about $500,000 to $700,000 a year.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, what we really have to have a clear understanding of. So it's either this, or what happens if our organization tomorrow packs up and goes? Then what happens? Then it's going to get deteriorated again, because it took me 11 to 12 months to get council to approve for us to have a lease of the stadium. It's going to take you a year and a half, so it's going to be stagnant, dormant, nobody's going there, and all of a sudden now it's not $130,000. Now it's 500 to 700, and now it's deteriorated, and now go put in millions of dollars again. So we got to look more at the big picture, and you need to understand, and when I'm asking council, if the city doesn't work with us, and when I mean work with us, it's work with us. Guys, if I was making tons and tons of money there, well, I wouldn't need to ask you for anything. That's the reality. But, you know, we're in the starting stages, and now is when we need your help. I may not need your help in 4 years. And maybe I can give a lot more back to the city than what we've already given. But at this point in time, we need to do something to make it work.
Mayor.
Need to call, yeah, there's a motion and a second on the floor.
Can I make a comment first? Sure, please. Thank you. I go back to the same thing, because I received the email that Mr. Gretzis referred to. And not being able to translate what the young man had said in the video and all, I was still appalled by what I had saw in the email. And I think as all good citizens and a father, and yourself as a father, if you knew kids or if there was any allegations in today's world of kids being mistreated, you've got to follow them up. So I give the chief and everybody else that responded out there, and you yourself said they responded as gentlemen or ladies. I give them credit for handling the situation as professionals. Now, that your name was brought in or whatever, and you say it was the other corporation, you know, it's always the big brother that gets in trouble. So let me say that I support what was done wholeheartedly by whomever was out there on the professional staff. I think there's some confusion here tonight by my colleagues that these people are here in support of Lillet, when in fact this is AYSO who was terminated out there. And I clearly remember, Mr. Ruiz, I remember being, I think I was probably one of the first council members that met with you out of these people here. And I couldn't wait for you to get here. And I still can't wait for that place to go big. But we asked you and we begged you when we were here and you spoke at the podium, please don't forget our residents that are so valuable to us and that use that place and that area is so valuable to them. And for whatever reason, I don't know all the details, I'm sure you and Mr. Norton have had discussions. But I know that they're no longer allowed out there, and that's 400 kids. City of Homestead, 600, whatever the number may be, that are no longer allowed to go out there and fulfill their dreams of kicking a soccer ball down the field. When we asked you to please help make sure that and I understand that there's a cost, and you explained that to us tonight. Perhaps there's middle ground.
Well,
hang on, let me finish, please. But these are 500, 600 kids, they've now told me, that are from here, that we asked you, and you stood right at that podium and said you would help them. And now they've been thrown out with nowhere to go. So, and that's what concerns me, is that we've got 18 kids or however many from Venezuela that take the spotlight, but these 600 kids are left with nowhere to go tonight, and that's what upsets me as a council person.
Let me just make something clear. We don't have soccer fields at the stadium. Roscoe Warren has soccer fields, and there are soccer fields elsewhere. I wish that I could have soccer fields for them, but we don't have soccer fields. We have baseball fields. And last season, they played at the facility, but they're playing on baseball fields. The baseball fields are not built for that. As a matter of fact, one of the main reasons, other than cost, that I stopped the actual soccer fields from being used is because there's coral in that field. And if kids fall there, they're going to leave their skin on there. Those fields are not built for playing soccer. They're not built for that. There's Roscoe Warren, and there's J.D. Red Park, and there's Harris Field. So we're not going to make this now that it's Lalle's fault that the AYSO is not playing there, because the reason that we were given by this organization, and Kiki can correct me if I'm wrong, is that they wanted to rent our fields because the city charged them $100 an hour. And that's the reason why they wanted to come to our stadium, so they could pay less money. Which, again, we didn't have a problem last season, but you know what happened is that the soccer overlaps with baseball. So we have tournaments that start now, so when they're playing soccer, we need the fields to play baseball. And in order to play soccer, you got to mark the outfield. So it's the Miami Marlins, used to be the Florida Marlins, built a baseball stadium because they couldn't play football and baseball in one stadium that was built for two things. And this is very similar to that. We'd be more than happy if they wanted to play at the stadium, but they can't play in the parking lot, which is where there's grass. And our future plans were to create soccer fields out there. I'm not really sure why they can't play at Roscoe Warren Park. I mean, those are soccer fields. They're built for that. I'm not really sure why that's a problem. I mean, those are the fields that are built for soccer.
Big money.
And that's the other issue. I mean, there's no... And again, there's no light. So here's what happens. Last season, and here's what this boils down to. Last season, they paid $5,000 to play their whole season there. Well, our light bill, as you guys well know, is $26,000 a month. So yeah, there's lights at our fields, but it just doesn't, the math doesn't add up between the math, the risk, and having to redo fields that weren't built for that. That's really where we're at. And I mean, I can let Kiki speak directly because I haven't spoken to their organization. It's been Kiki completely speaking with their organization. But again, I mean, I don't want to divert the attention to now all of a sudden it's for some reason that, I mean, we are a private organization and we try to give priority to everybody in the city, and believe me, we want as many people as possible to go to the stadium. But the reality is that those fields are not designed and they're not fit for that purpose. And you can't do something like that because it's really, there's a big risk. And, you know, I need to bring to the council's attention because I'm very concerned, and we were talking about kids and we're talking about calling out. There have been a number of potential head-on collisions in front of our stadium because people are traveling back towards the softball complex when the traffic for people coming to pick up kids is going in the other direction. And, you know, something should be done there, whether it's that the school's got to put some more police officers, but, you know, there's a turn there where you can't see. It's a blind spot. And, you know, people can't drive in the direction. Those lanes were built to go one car in one direction. But what's happening now is two cars are coming in one direction. The car that's going the other way has no clue that cars are coming in that direction. So hopefully that needs to be addressed.
That's the parking lot you're referring to.
That's the whole entire roadway coming from the softball complex around the entire bend and in front of the stadium.
I know we changed the parking lot to one way.
And it was changed because...
Excuse me, on the council on this issue, this is one of the issues that Mr. Ruiz has brought up, that the city is in violation of our lease, so I'd ask you, please not to...
the insurance.
Other than to say, Mr.
All we need is a vote, I guess.
You need to vote on the...
Yeah, let's vote it up or down. Roll call vote, and that's, everybody understands what he's talking about, right?
Councilman Maldonado?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woolman?
No.
Vice Mayor Burgess?
No.
Councilwoman Fairclough McCormick?
No, I feel we need to negotiate more.
Councilman Shelley?
No.
Mayor Bateman?
Yes.
The motion fails.
I think for the purpose of the record, it's important to let you know where we are. Technically, Mr. Ruiz was, a little late, I don't want to personalize it, there was certain insurance that he was supposed to pay. The council agreed to a certain period of time where he was supposed to pay the insurance, you know, where they waived the insurance. And so at this time, he is technically in default of his lease. So, as...
Can I just clear one thing up? You've gotten payment.
Mr. Ruiz, I hardly said anything, so this is my time now.
But you've gotten payment, so you know.
He's in default on his lease.
Okay.
So the council needs to tell us, you are the landlords, and I've talked to almost all of you about this. You're the landlords, and we're basically the property managers. And as you as a landlord need to tell us then, if Mr. Ruiz is in default on his lease, on this particular issue, what do you want us to do? So we can either do nothing, if that's what you as landlords want us to do, or we can pursue our remedies under the lease, which would be eviction. So that's what, we've given, Mr. Ruiz has been given, Lele has been given notice, so that's where we are on this issue. And that's where we are. And so we as staff, and I think the manager said it, but you're the landlord, so you need to tell us what to do. Because otherwise, there's a vacuum. And, I think that I understand why the letter that the manager wrote was a strong letter, but the truth is, as Mr. Shelley said, I mean, that staff's job basically to go through and say what the situation is. It's your job as the council/landlord to tell us what you want to do with it. And that's I hate to put this in your lap, but that's sort of where it is. Mr. Mayor?
Yep, Mr. President. Just for clarification, then, are we saying that the payments are not current as of May, or?
Priscilla?
Yes. There were checks delivered, and there have been checks that have been deposited. One check was last Tuesday and 3 checks last Friday, and I've been told that it could take up to 14 days for that transaction to be fully complete, for the money to be fully funded into the city's account. So the checks are in the negotiations.
Is May in?
I'm sorry?
May.
It could take up to...
Is the month of May in?
Oh, no, sir. I'm sorry, I did not understand your question.
Okay, so he's paid April. Assuming those clear, April would be paid.
Also, we received a letter from him saying that, I guess his last letter was he had no intention of making good on those checks because of some other argument. So I think what Priscilla is saying is those checks have been deposited. We don't have a record of whether the checks are funded or not. And we also are due the month of May that's overdue. Okay.
I mean, for me, problem is the water's so muddy right now. There's so many issues that have been thrown out there. There's so many potential causes of breach that, assuming we're only talking about the insurance and we'll leave the others alone for right now because those are, shots across the bow. For me, I just want the insurance paid in accordance with the lease. And if you, Mr. Ruiz, tell me that Lele is not able and not going to make those payments, that doesn't leave us a whole lot of room. I mean, we are where we are.
It's already been paid.
No, for May, going forward.
The last time that we were here, you even asked, pay the months that you owe. I've done that. The issue for today was the issue of insurance, and when I spoke with Patricia, we were supposed to discuss the insurance today. Now, if your vote is, no, you have to pay the insurance, then I'll have to pay for May. But I've already paid January, February, March, and April.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is that we took a vote today, and so the waiver or the other option is off the table. Right now, from what I understand, the direction from our council has been for you to pay in accordance with the lease, and that's my position as well. So what I'm asking you, are you going to pay May such that tomorrow we'll get a check and you'll be at least paid in full through May, and continuing thereafter you're going to pay your insurance, or your position now is, no, you're not going to make those payments going forward?
You know what, at this point in time, what I can tell you is that we've paid January, February, March, and April. I can't tell you what is going to happen based on the council's vote today, because there's many issues where we feel that the city owes us a substantial amount of money. So right now, just to make sure the record is clear, Lale Sports is up to date with his insurance, with the exception of May. However, we haven't been sent a letter stating that we haven't paid the month of May. And under the terms of the lease, we have certain time frame to be able to make that payment once that's occurs. Now, so that you understand, we were waiting to see what was going to happen today. Now that the council's voted.
I understand. I guess what I'm saying is we're back to posturing again. We had this whole long conversation about how can we mend the fences. The vote's been taken. The council has spoken policy-wise. It's come from us as a group, majority. So what I'm trying to say is, are you going to pay in May so that we can start mending these fences? Otherwise, if you tell me no, or you don't make the payment in the next day, then we have to turn and tell staff to start legal proceedings, which I don't want to do. So I'm trying to...
Well, the legal proceeding's already there, so what you would probably do is counterclaim.
Right.
But again, it's our position that the city has breached its lease and that we don't have to abide by those terms, and then in addition to that, we're owed more money than what we owe the city. But again, we're not going to get anywhere arguing a legal case here today, and that's what I don't want to do. Ultimately, the council voted, and the vote is that you do not want to waive the insurance. Right. That's really what it boils down to. Now, we got a bunch of other issues that may come up before council, or they may not come up, but that's where we're at.
And Mr. Mayor, there's two other issues. One is the Gigante agreement, and again, so that we don't get into a legal argument here, which I think is right, I feel very comfortable telling you that we've reviewed the Gigante agreement, and we believe that it is not a short-term agreement, that it needed to be approved by council, and again, you're the landlords, so do you want us to approve, does the council want to approve the agreement he has? And I think he should be given an opportunity to explain what the agreement is. I know that he disagrees with me, but I'm just telling you that we believe that it requires council approval. Do you want it or not? Do you want to approve it or not approve it? That's the second issue.
It's not necessary anymore because they're gone, so there is no agreement anymore. That agreement is pretty much
Then the third issue is the ski cable water park. Okay. Under our interpretation of the lease, this requires council approval for them to move forward. And the issue before the council is whether you want to give them approval to move forward with that ski cable water park or not.
Quick question. If he's in default, how can we enter into an agreement with somebody legally?
Because, as I mentioned before, you're the landlords.
Right.
And so, as you and I've had the same conversation with everybody, and you have the ability as the landlord to basically, a normal situation, you would try to get these defaults resolved before you moved ahead. But again, you're the landlord.
And litigation pending, would that be a wise decision on our behalf? To let another tenant in there that is under his lease, wouldn't that possibly compound the issue and the troubles that we would have? I mean, I love the idea of the water park.
I mean, if you
but I'm looking for the legality.
Cable park until these other issues were worked out. I have not seen these lawsuits, so I'm really not able to.
I'd make a motion to defer.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to defer. Yes, please, go ahead.
What are we deferring?
The cable park.
You have the right to vote up or down on the cable park lease, and that's been put before you. So you're basically deferring any vote on that until the other issues are resolved.
I just you had proposed to council, where you asked for direction. They're in default because we voted not to defer the 4 years of payments. So let's just discuss first, how are we going to proceed? Are we going to evict them? What are the next steps? Go ahead, were you about to say something?
Okay. What I would need to do is, the representation has been made that payments through April are up to date.
Okay.
If those payments we've previously provided the lay with notice that they're in default on their insurance payments. If the payments are made through April, then probably he's okay through April, and then a payment is due in May. And certainly if the check's clear and the payment and he's up to date on his insurance, then he's up to date on his insurance, and then the default has been cured.
Okay, thank you. Even if he pays for May, I am willing to still come up with an option for monthly payments. I'm not ready to give up on you. I know I was not comfortable with the 4-year deferred payment, but perhaps we can come up with something else, because it seems as if it's very difficult to make that amount of payments, close to $11,000. It's difficult for you to make that amount of monthly payment. I'm willing to negotiate the amount you pay per month, but I personally feel you have to pay something per month. because we just can't, pass it on to the taxpayers per se. If the body, my colleagues up here are willing to accept me moving forward with alternative options. But that has to be determined collectively, perhaps a workshop, because I'm not going to make, that decision myself. We all have to make that decision. We can talk all day, but at the end of the day, it's up to the council to vote. So if they're willing to listen to or be presented another option, then I'm willing to do that. I'm not ready to evict you.
Okay. Again, it's Lale's position. We've made our insurance payments through the checks have been delivered. So, you know what? The only thing that's up now to be paid would be the month of May, which the council just voted on. So, in our Lale's, are not in default for not paying insurance. We've paid the insurance. The only the month it's due, it's May. If it was due May 1st, it's our opinion that the city would have to notify us that we're in default. But if I pay the month of May, we don't owe insurance. We also paid the utilities. Well, we sent an email today to pay the utilities that we still disagree with, but we've nevertheless paid them to later dispute that we've been overbilled. It's Lale's position that we've paid everything that we're supposed to pay. Now, this gentleman's been waiting for how many months? For the cable park?
Mayor, there's a motion and a...
4 or 5 months?
For a vote.
Okay. So, what Todd would like to do, and again, I think we discussed this as well, is nothing's going to happen as it pertains to the stadium, in 1 week or 2 weeks. If we disagree on issues, the court process is a very lengthy one if we can't come up with a solution. What he is suggesting is that whether or not Lale stays there as a tenant or not, that you approve his sublease, if you want to call it, and then even if Lale is out because we either choose to leave or because we're asked to leave or whatever ends up happening, he's still willing to stay.
Okay, Mr. Ruiz, let me just stop you there. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Let's address that now because we're kind of bouncing all over the place.
Okay, any final discussion on the motion at hand and the second? Okay, Madam.
May I ask a question? I just want to make sure I understand.
Motion to defer any decision on the ski cable water park until a later date. That's the motion.
But this is discussion, correct?
We're in discussion now.
Okay. Because I wanted to ask a question. Even if the insurance is paid in full through May, according to what I read in the letter today that I received, aren't they in default of other things as well, in breach?
I think Councilman Shelley was trying to narrow the issues a little bit, but...
I don't want to narrow them, I just want to generalize.
Look at again, staff is telling you that in our professional opinion, that there are other defaults of the lease. You as the landlord can say that these are technical items which we're not concerned about, and we are directing you as staff to basically overlook them. Or you could say, I'm concerned about some of these items, and we want you to pursue them. So that's why it's.
The only reason I'm asking these questions is that because we just were told that we have 2 lawsuits filed this afternoon, I personally don't want to enter into any other agreement with anyone until I know what those lawsuits say and how we're going to defend them and what course of action we're going to take. So, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay. We've got the motion and second on. Madam Clerk?
This is on the motion to defer this.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes to defer.
Councilwoman Fairclough McCormick?
Yes.
Councilman Maldonado?
No.
Councilwoman Wallman?
Yes to defer.
Vice Mayor Burgess?
Yes.
Mayor Bateman?
No.
The motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Good night. Thank you. Good night. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Well, I think the issue is a mute issue at this point, unless you're going to talk maybe about taking over the stadium. Please come to the podium and state your name. We'll take about 3 people.
My name is Tim Norton. I'm the AYSO Regional Commissioner. I represent all these folks here and 560 other kids in our league out there at the sports complex. Last Wednesday we had a meeting with Lele, and I think they referenced Kiki as one of the staff members. When we went in there with 5 of our AYSO members, the initial meeting was that we were no longer going to be allowed to play AYSO sports on the 4 softball fields in the backside of the sports complex. We've been out there for 20 years, and I think a lot of people in the city of Homestead has been touched by AYSO's program. Now, with that being said, they did come back and say we will give you 1 softball field to play, and we will allow you to use the soccer field next to the charter school, next to the high school, on Saturday mornings till noon. We have 560 kids. I have 60 teams. There's no way that I'm going to be able to put 60 teams on 1 softball field and that field over there next to the charter school. Now, he brought up a point about Roscoe Warren Park. Well, Roscoe Warren Park just opened last year with respect to softball fields. Plus, it doesn't have lights. We do have lights at Harris Field. I can probably put some of the kids over there. But we essentially are going to lose 2/3 of our program because of the decision by Lele. And what they specifically told me was for 2 reasons. Number 1, we tear up the fields. Number 2, he's not making a profit out there. The bottom line is, he told me the bread and butter is baseball. That's where they make their money. And oh, by the way, they announced that they are making a partnership with a soccer company called Parma. Parma is a professional soccer club organization that specializes in camps, instruction, travel teams. A lot of the folks at AYSO cannot afford a Parma. We keep our costs to a minimum. We are a nonprofit organization. He mentioned how we only paid $5,000 last year. That's what they asked us to pay, was $5,000, and I wrote them a check for $5,000. The other issue was the overflow parking area that's out front. Last August, when we had a meeting with Lele, Kiki said that they were going to start sodding that parking area, and they were going to have soccer fields out there, which there's tons of property. If there's enough money available, you could really put a lot of soccer fields out there with new turf and lights. You know, the infrastructure's already there for the lights, and you could cookie cutter that thing up and make soccer fields. But you know what? The other day they said they would help us try to raise funds or find grant money, and I got a quote from them the other day for $35,000 for lights, turf, and a fence that have to be put up there. And my question was to them, would we have exclusive rights to that field? And they said no. Other organizations will be allowed to play in that 1 field. I can go back to AYSO National for grant money, but we wouldn't have exclusive rights. So why am I going to pay to have all this money put into that field, but we're not given exclusive rights? And there's some other issues as well. But the bottom line is, we provide a recreational program for all these kids. These kids at AYSO have to play soccer. When you're in a travel program, you're not guaranteed to play. You might sit the bench. You might sit the bench, and if the coach puts you in there for the last 5 minutes, that's fine, but you're still paying that big money. All these kids have to play at least half a game, and we keep costs to a minimum. Every single dime that we make goes back into our program. So again, we're going to lose 2/3 of our AYSO program in this city that we've had for the last 20 years. I can't get grant money. I can't get businesses. And we start registration at the end of this month. We start our league the 1st of September. It's almost impossible to get that kind of money and those resources generated in that short period of time. So I just want to make that comment. I have nothing personal against Lele. I thank them for what they did for us last year. But this year, we were totally punched in the stomach when we went through the meeting last Wednesday. We had no clue that they were going to tell us essentially to take a hike. So that's all I have to say.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. I've been coming out for years, and my son played on the AYSO team as well. What did the city charge you before we ever got involved in the line?
The city charged us $3,600. And they continue to charge us. I've been the regional commissioner for 6 years. To my knowledge, it was that until last year when the lake took over. And they bumped it up to $5,000, which we knew we were going to get a bump because they are a for-profit organization. But you know what? Other than paint, and I guess the light bill is the biggest cost, they got to cut the grass anyways. I'll buy the paint. You know, I'll stripe the fields if that's what it takes. But to tell me that we paid them $5,000 and it cost them $30,000 for the fields, please. And I guarantee you, we've got many parents out here that can attest to the fact that LaLaye, they did a nice job at first, but that maintenance dropped off until they had a softball tournament, and then they put sod in there. You know, we were told all this nice stuff at the beginning. Videotapes, closed-circuit TV, they were going to have a rental car, a rental golf cart thing out there. They had nice pictures and everything, and we were going to be part of that team. We were going to be put underneath that umbrella. And now we're getting treated like, you know. Anyways, I'm getting a little emotional, but
No, listen.
I'm just frustrated because 300 plus kids are going to be affected by this. I cannot find that many fields with lights because most of our activity falls after school during the evening hours to have a soccer season this year. And we've been doing this for 20 years.
But what can you get out of Harris Field where they play Dick Conley?
Harris Field, I think we have 2 large fields over there. We could probably do our under 14 kids over there. The field next to the charter school, we can do our under 16 kids. And the one field that are going to let us use, the softball field, we could probably do the 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds in our handicap league. But the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds, it's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough. And it's tough on the volunteers. We don't get paid a nickel.
No, I know. You do.
There's 60 coaches, 60 assistant coaches, all the board members, everybody. We don't get paid a nickel. Nothing.
Well, you can't divert the games, those other age groups to the Roscoe Warren.
Well, we will. I mean, we'll make do with what we can. But I mean, with 60 teams, it's going to be a logistical feat. Believe me.
We definitely need more soccer fields, I know.
Mayor. All right. Thank you, sir.
Mayor. Mayor.
Yes, Kenneth.
Mayor, the thing is on the Harris Field, the only problem it is that Dick Conley football plays the same time as the soccer leagues do. So it'll probably kind of be a conflict. I know that we can look into the Keysgate Charter School, which we have the lease agreement, which we have rights to them soccer fields, which we can probably work with them on the weekends. And of course, Roscoe Warren, of course, will work with them. The only thing is, of course, Roscoe Warren is the $1.5 million for the lights, which we try to go out for grants and that, which we fell short on. So we'll do whatever we can for them.
Thank you.
They're a good organization. We're always
Very
good with them.
Could we, Mayor, just a quick question on that and temporary, because I think the issue here that's a concern for everyone is the time frame. So if we're going to be adjusting to make sure that they're able to move forward while we try to figure out what's going to happen with everything that happened with LA Sports, is that can we now get temporary lights over there so to light up the field so they can use the Roscoe Warren Park? Is that a possibility? And I'm just saying this, it's just kind of a Band-Aid right now, but I just want to make sure, worst case scenario that they have use of that field, and that we as a city pitch in because of whatever unfortunate positions that we are, to make sure that at the end of the day that they're up and running with that league. I know the last year, and I was going to mention it, we have some championship teams. We've known that they've done great. It's a great organization. They've been here forever. Everyone knows them. So I want to make sure that they're able to move forward, because they're caught, they're caught up in this, and they're being affected, unfortunately, by it. So I just want to make sure that as we're looking at these options, that if we consider those fields, that we can get some temporary lights, and then I guess, on those capital improvement plans, it might have been one of those ideas to light up that field as well. And then also just, I was going to mention it, I think you did mention it, I know that we have the lease agreement with Charter School USA's. What is the status with those fields, and are they using them? Can we use them? You know, just if you could give us some information back on that and help us with this. In the meantime, that'll help us out.
We do, because I was part of the lease agreement with the charter school. We do have rights for the soccer fields. We just have to work with the charter school on the days that we need it. Unless they have other activities, of course, they get first served. But I know they have called me and said that people are going in there during the weekends, jumping the fence, and they were asking me if they could lock it because they know it's city fields, and we told them yes. But we could come to an agreement with them. The only thing about the stationary lighting, Councilman, is that it'd probably take a lot of them, and we don't have the light stands for that. Plus, that's a safety issue. You know, you'd have to be a certain height. You know, you don't want them to collide. It can't be, certain shadows and stuff like that. It would cost a pretty good penny. You know what I mean? We have 4 soccer fields there.
All right. Well, I'm just throwing out some ideas. See what sticks on the wall.
Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Wallman.
Tim, could you call me tomorrow and let's make an appointment to get together? I have some ideas, and maybe through the national organization and the experience that you and I have worked together in the past, especially with I hate to call them handicapped, but the disabled children. I think maybe we could put our heads together with Parks and Recs and our staff, and perhaps we could come up with something. We have to come up with something. We have to do something, because this would be the first year that I could ever remember that we would not have AYSO. So, have to do something. Thank you.
Okay. All right, motion. Is there anybody else like? Yes, sir. You've been there pretty much very patient on that.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Robert Eichler. I'm a soccer dad of 3 kids. All right. I appreciate you guys coming up with alternatives. However, if it's not a one park, I have to decide which one of my kids are going to play. The way it is, we're running from field to field. You know, watching the kids play. If they're not at one park, it's one kid.
No, I hear you. I would love to see I'd love to see a Weston situation where mom and dad pulls in from 7, 8 years old in the morning, 8-year-old to 12-year-old. It would be beautiful, and maybe that's something we can work on in the future here. With if Lillet's moving on, we go back to the drawing board. But we'll work out something for you, I promise you.
Hello?
Oh, go ahead. Let him finish.
It's on. It's on.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Ian Campbell. I've been playing AYSO all my life, really, since I was 5 years old. And there was not one year where it wasn't in the same fields. They were great fields. There were never really much problem with them. And then when I turned 15 last year, I've been doing AYSO for so long, I learned all my soccer, and I started coaching under 10-year-old kids. And I got all my community service in soccer, and I also learned a lot about soccer, and I think I developed some leadership skills also, and I think it was a very nice experience.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, after having heard all the comments from here, I will personally write a check from my own pocket, and I'll fix the fields, and I will tell Kiki for these kids to be able to play on those fields.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I'm going to ask the gentleman to speak directly with Kiki, and we will resolve it. There may be scheduling issues because we got softball and stuff like that, but we will work it out with them. And you know, it's unfortunate, but I think that these kids need to understand, and the people that support them, because we are always about kids, and that's the reality, but we run a private organization. And when you run a private organization, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. We only have one facility. We don't have other parks. And unfortunately, because of all the costs associated with a lot of things, and because that facility not being built to play soccer on. Now, we tried to facilitate that by using the field next door, which is a soccer field, and we did have the intention of creating soccer fields in the parking lot, but that hasn't happened yet, which is the reason why we're trying to enter into an agreement with Parma so that we can build the soccer fields. That's how we're trying to get funding so that we can build soccer fields. So that you get an idea, to maintain the baseball fields at that complex, it's a cost of about $500,000 a year. So in order to maintain the fields that we have there, it's very costly. There's fertilization, there's airing of the fields. It's extremely costly to maintain baseball fields. And the city knows because they had to do it for some period of time. So when there's a situation like that, we'll try to do our best as an organization, but it would break my heart to see kids, you know, not being able to do what they want to do. And you know what? They are not soccer fields, but we will do whatever we need to do to make sure that you guys are able to play there. So all I'm asking you to do is speak with Kiki, and we will work it out, and then we will go ahead and redo those fields at the end of the season. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. On that note, with your permission, I think we'll adjourn. Have a great evening. Thank you.